Okay, so welcome back. Welcome back to our climate change and mental health workshop. I'm sure you were enriched, overwhelmed even by the previous discussion, the previous session. I remember there were a few colleagues who wanted to ask questions. So, that's not the only chance. You have more opportunities throughout the day to ask your questions. So please, when question time starts, or even before that, please feel free to run to the microphones along the aisle so that you get to reserve your spot. Okay, so I was just informed that unfortunately we cannot actually bring food and drinks inside. So just drink it very quickly. Run and dispose of the container outside. Also, a public service announcement. There's one EasyLink card that was found. If it's yours, please claim it from us. Okay, we found the owner. Okay. Excellent, wonderful. So now we'll resume with our program. And actually, in the previous session, we were already starting to hear some questions, some insights regarding, vulnerable communities, different groups of people who are affected by climate change and mental health. How are they engaged in this new agenda? And that's a perfect segue to our next panel, which is about centering communities and people with lived experience. And we are privileged to have with us as moderator for the next panel. She works for UNICEF Malaysia. She is also the youth ambassador for Connecting Climate Minds, Eastern and Southeastern Asia Regional Hub. And so without further ado, let's give a big hand to the fabulous Jasmine Ilham.
Thank you so much, Renzo. Hi, everyone. Selamat pagi semua. Good morning, everyone. How are you? I hope you're all energized from the coffee break. All right. Before I proceed with the panel, I thought I'd introduce myself, although Renzo already did, but also to set the stage of the conversations that we're about to have today. Earlier today, you've heard from the experts, and today for this panel, we are centering communities and people with lived experience. As Renzo introduced, my name is Jasmine. I work with the UNICEF Malaysia country office, and I also am together with the Connecting Climate Minds in the region as a youth ambassador. I started my climate and environmental advocacy journey since I was 14 years old. And ever since I was a child, I've organized a lot of programs in schools, universities. I've also led the Malaysian youth delegation to the United Nations conference, climate change conference, the COP, and also have a background in environmental science and climate and society. So conversations surrounding mental health is relatively new to me, although I know so many young climate advocates out there who are suffering from climate anxiety and climate grief because of the work that they do. Children and young people are amongst the vulnerable population that are disproportionately impacted by the climate crisis. They are the least responsible for the climate crisis, but bear the brunt of it the most. Children born today and in the past decade are born into the climate crisis. According to a study by UNICEF Malaysia and also UNDP in Malaysia, Singapore, and Brunei Darussalam, the National Youth Climate Change Survey recognizes that 92% of young people in Malaysia identifies climate change as a crisis, and a large number of them have really said that they suffer through mental health impacts because of climate-induced disasters such as floodings, landslides, and also harm due to air pollution. And we know that, and in the past couple of days, we've heard a lot of statistics. We heard about statistics in the region, and Malaysia is not spared from it. 6 out of 10 young people in Malaysia suffers mild to severe depression, and 1 out of 10 young people aged 18 to 30 years old have unfortunately attempted or even have ideations of suicide. But now I would like to put all the statistics aside and listen to stories. And I would like to invite you, people in the audience, people sitting here today. I know you're interested, but I would also like to invite you to hold the space to listen to the stories from the lived communities with lived experiences, to really be engaged meaningfully in the conversations, and also learn and unlearn from the things that we experience and listen to in this hall today. So I would like to invite the panel to introduce themselves. I think I wouldn't do any justice because of the amazing work that they do. And on to right beside me, Prabhu, if you could kindly introduce yourself and the work that you do.
Sure. Thanks, Yasmin. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I can see some faces, familiar faces from day one. I was here on day one, and then I couldn't do day two. Lah. And today I just entered, so I missed the morning part. Yeah. My name is Prabhu, and as the introductory panel says, I'm a patient advocate, a volunteer with Sing Health Patient Advocacy Network. And I came about that because 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with colorectal cancer stage 3. I'm now fifth year remission. So, but then, with cancer, there's no guarantee. So live every day with gratitude, and I was happy I'm awake this morning to be able to come here. So I do that every morning. So as a result of that experience, I asked myself while doing chemo and radiation and surgery and the whole works, you're lying there. And luckily, it's during pandemic. I say luckily because it gave me chance to really, really pull back and reflect. So then I realized I better give back to the community. So today I serve with Sing Health Patient Advocacy Network, Cancer Society Support Group, specifically for colorectal patients and survivors, and also with a hospital in Singapore, which is Tan Tock Seng Hospital, the hospital that took care of me and still takes care of me. So because of that association, I'm exposed to at any time about 60 to 80 fellow patients, and I've learned a lot, lived experience, right? Not only my own, but what I've learned from them. And today I'll just share some of these. My context will be very narrow based on what I've described. So I'm not kind of, global knowledge on it. So that's my perspective that I'll be coming from as I share. And because I missed the day one and also day one I was there, but I missed this morning. If there's something that can connect, please help me to connect because I'm not able to. But I did hear that one speaker spoke about nature, which is also close to my heart. Yeah, I'll share some deeper insights on that. So with that said, I would like to alert you, the organizers told me I'm about the only patient in the room here now. But I don't think so. Quick show of hands, how many of you are also patients in one way or another? So I'm not alone, more than half of you are patients. So thank you for joining. But anyway, I came prepared because as I was coming here, this is a hospital campus. There are about 1,000 patients anytime. I already spoke to them. If I need help, one call, the 1,000 are going to come here. So be careful. Don't bully me. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Looking forward to hearing more on your experience, and I can feel the energy exuding from you as a patient advocate. All right, next up we have Derek. Derek, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, magandang umaga in the Philippines. Good morning. So I'm very much thankful for the organizers to have invited me to be part of this platform. My name is Derek Abe. I'm a climate and environmental activist in the Philippines and a community organizer. I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist, but my 30 years of organizing, working in the community, has taught me a lot of lessons and learnings that I really want to share, specifically on how communities are surviving the climate impacts that are experiencing right now. So I think as a statement right now, I think climate change has affected everyone, but the structural inequalities that has been existent long before climate change impacts have been experiencing by communities have made the impacts more complex, especially when we talk about marginalized communities. I, for one, has experienced people asking me because my community has been frequented by typhoons and floodings every year. Like for every year, I experience twice, thrice flooded. No, our house has been submerged by flood, and people would just ask me, "Why can't you move out? No, why can't you transfer and find another place?" So it's not that easy to move from one place to another when you all your life has lived in that community. Your culture, your identity, your friends, your neighbors are there, and the typhoons and disasters are have made us separated from each other. I don't know where the others have lived right now, so it's really a dislocation, and it has impacted my whole life as I speak right now. And talking about the communities that I organize, um, what do you imagine if a fisher folk who lives in the community where the fishing ground is just near and where they settled for whole of their lives, and one disaster, one typhoon would come and everything is lost. What do you imagine the surviving mode is that to get food, but there's no food. To get a livelihood, but there's no livelihood. So the stress, the amount, I can only imagine the amount of stress and the psychological distress that this situation would bring to the communities. It's unimaginable. And these are all happening right now. And it does not happen once, but it keeps on happening every year, every typhoon, every disaster. The, the cycle of devastation, recovery, another devastation, another recovery, is mind-boggling. You don't know how do you get out of that cycle. So I think we have to consider the impacts to the marginalized ones, to the communities where we always see that for us, some of us would be easier, no? I mean, the impacts would be, I have money, I will just go and move to another higher place. But there are people in communities who cannot do that. They have no choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek, our climate warrior from the Philippines. Looking forward to more stories of resilience from you. Next, Priscilla, over to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Priscilla Giri. Looking at me, people might think I'm from Singapore itself, but sorry. I'm from India, Darjeeling. So Darjeeling is placed in a northeastern side of India, where people like us exactly look like you. This is a region where we are marginalized, vulnerable people. We are in the mountains, very close to the mountains. The examples or the life experience that she experienced, we exactly share that same experience in different forms. Being in the mountains and closer and higher up in the altitude, the impact of climate change is being seen and heard on a day-to-day basis. For instance, our daily conversations around the hills happen on basis of the weather. We talk about the extreme heat that is ongoing, the surging tourists that comes up the hills because of the intolerable heat in the plains. We talk about the monsoons where the rain gets drenched in the monsoon season, but also the landslides that occurs on a day-to-day basis, the loss of lives that happens on a day-to-day basis. We talk about the winter scarcity of rain, the loss of agriculture that's happening in these small scale farming culture. We also talk about the smell of the chute that we call, that is the landfill, where the winter winds bring the smell of the chute to all our houses and our offices. So this is the narrative that goes on during our day-to-day cycle whenever we bump into people we know. So Darjeeling is a very small town. You get to bump to people on a daily basis. The season summer was never in our language before, but nowadays we do experience summer as well. So to share my experience of an incident that happened in 2009, when I was a young girl, probably I was in school, when there was a cyclone called Ayla that hit our region. This incident happened very close to where I lived. The landslide that occurred was very close to where my house was. And I still remember the time where I couldn't sleep, the time where I could fear that my family member or I will be no more the next day I wake up. So this incident still brings me chills when I talk about it, but this is the lives of the people in the hills. So to maybe continue talking about this and my work, I'll just hand over to you.
Thanks, Priscilla. You've given us a great teaser for what's to come in the next session of questions. Next up, Sina.
Hi, good morning everyone. Magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat. I'm also from the Philippines. I'm a practicing psychologist, but prior to becoming a psychologist, my background really is in the corporate. And so I'm just 5 years in the practice. Initially, I really didn't know what mental health and climate change. I know mental health, but I'm not. Same with the other population. I don't know what mental climate change is. I don't even believe it's happening until I got a distressing call from my client who it's a call for help because he sent me a message of or a photo of cut um wrist in the middle of the night around 11 o'clock in the evening in in 2020 and that is in the middle of the pandemic, in the middle of three typhoons coming into the Philippines. We just make it funny, but the typhoons in the Philippines are in queue in the Pacific Ocean. One typhoon, and then after 2 weeks, another typhoon, another weeks. It's coming. They are all there, right? Waiting to come into the um, Philippine area of responsibility. Now, I didn't know that it was already an interaction between climate change and mental health. But all the theories in psychology, I forgot. I forgot all the things that I have to do as a psychologist. All I want to do is to save the life of one person at that moment. And I don't know how to do that if I did not go into my center, back to my being a psychologist and do everything I have to do. So learning from school, learning from the mental health first response, the PFA and all that, in a minute, I was able to help that person because that my client, he didn't intend to die at that time, but everything is rushing into the thoughts. Now, the cause of his anxiety is that he's a college student. He just lost his scholarship. He is outside of their house. He lives far, and he can't go home. He can't be with his family because it's lockdown. So, how will I help that person? So that's my objective is to help that person. And luckily, in an hour, we were able to um, contact some people nearby because he lives like 30 kilometers away from me. And before the storm strike, we were able to save that person. And I think that was an eye opener for me that climate change is really real and mental health is part of it. So from then on, I promised I had that commitment to research more how to respond on this kind of crisis. It's not just, being there, being physically there to save, but also to find ways on saving people's lives. So in my 5 years of practice in psychology, I took it upon myself to learn about technology, about virtual um, ways of responding to crisis. And just recently in October last year, when Typhoon Trami hit our country. By the way, before we go on, my my childhood was also spent on the eastern border of the Philippines, where we have like 7 volcanoes in that island, with one. If you've heard about Mayon volcano, that's a very active volcano in that area. And we are receiving an average of 20 typhoons every year. So for Filipinos here, you know the area. And relocation is not really an option. I relocated myself in Manila because I have to study. But during the Typhoon Trami, I was helpless because I can't go home and help my parents, my cousins, my relatives in there. So as a first responder of a typhoon, it's also our dilemma. We are also facing our own issues together with a duty, right? So we have to save ourselves first and then save others. And if we are not well equipped with that competency and skills and willpower, I don't know what will happen to our profession if we will not be able to function well in disaster. Maybe I can tell you more later if you have questions, but I think that's the dilemma of being a first responder. How will you save yourself first and then save others? So I also teach some new psychologists and also mental health advocate on the airplane approach, because as I myself, I do have a messianic complex where I think I'm a hero, but yeah, you can't really save the lives of everyone, correct? So um, first, I really make sure that I know what I'm doing, and I'm on the zone. I'm not panicking in responding to this disaster. So I think that's what the issue of responders is. We also have to be self-aware before helping others. So yeah.
Thank you, Sina, for sharing your story, and particularly that profound moment when you realize, like, oh my God, like climate change and mental health, they're actually interconnected, right? And next, we have Iftikhar. Iftikhar is joined with us, together with us, with his interpreter, Anshuman. He'll be interpreting in mainly Hindi and Assamese as well. So over to you, Iftikhar, to introduce yourself.
गुड मॉर्निंग मेरा नाम इफ्तिकार हुसैन सिद्दीक मैं इंडिया का नॉर्थ ईस्ट का आसाम से मैं बिलोंग करता हूँ और मैं आसाम में ही मैं काम कर रहा हूँ मेरा जो है मैं डेवलपमेंट एंड जस्टिस इनिशिएटिव एंड मारियाला हैंड इनिशिएटिव का मदद से जो आसाम में जो रिवर इरोटेड और फ्लड फ्लड में जो इफेक्टेड है उस कम्युनिटी से मैं बिलोंग करता हूँ और उसी कम्युनिटी को सपोर्ट करने में मैं काम कर रहा हूँ और उनके साथ साथ एशिया का सबसे बड़ा डिटेंशन सेंटर जिसको ट्रांजिट कैंप कहते हैं उसके साथ वहाँ पे मैं काम कर रहा हूँ
Good morning. So I'll be interpreting for Iftikhar. I belong to the state of Assam in Northeast India, and I have been working in Assam for a while with the support of 2 organizations. One is the Mariwala Health Initiative, which is also a partner organization here, and the Development and Justice Initiative. I belong to a community which is deeply affected by river erosion and floods in Assam. And I have also been working with that particular community. In addition, I have been working with those who are currently lodged in Asia's largest detention camp in Assam, which is officially known as Transit Camp.
जो डिटेंशन कैंप है उसमें हम लोग डिस्ट्रिक्ट एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन और डिस्ट्रिक्ट लीगल सर्विस अथॉरिटी के साथ मिलके वहाँ पे उन लोगों को जो इनमेट्स है उनको हम लोग मेंटली सपोर्ट कर रहा है। और जो कम्युनिटी में है, कम्युनिटी में हम लोग जिस ये अफेक्टेड जो लोग हैं उसका जो अफेक्टेड लोगों का जो सिटीजनशिप, जो स्टेटलेसनेस का इशू शुरू हुआ है, उसी को हम लोग मदद कर रहे हैं और कैसे वो खुद को इस मुसीबत से वो निकल के आ पाए।
We have been working with on the issue of helping detainees who are lodged in the detention camp, who are affected by a severe citizenship crisis, which is also a statelessness crisis. We are working with the local district legal authorities, or the district, which is officially in Assam known as the District Legal Service Authority, to provide mental health support for those who are being affected by citizenship and are lodged in this detention camp.
जो रिवाइरेशन है उसमें हमारा कम्युनिटी का लोग सबसे ज़्यादा अफेक्टेड है और उसमें बोला जाए तो 2022 में ही 55 लाख पीपल अफेक्टेड हुआ था।
Um, the community that I belong to and the community that I've been working with is the most affected by river erosion. And in 2022 alone, river erosion also triggered by climate change in that context. And in 2022 alone, 55 lakh people, which would be 5.5 million. Yes, 5.5 million people were affected by river erosion in the state of Assam in 2022 alone.
वहाँ पे उनको मेंटल हेल्थ सपोर्ट करना, उनका जो भी दिक्कत है उसके साथ हम लोग काम कर, जैसे उनको क्योंकि क्लाइमेट चेंज के वजह से उसका घर चला जाता है, घर चला जाने के वजह से उसका अगेंस्ट में सिटीजनशिप का केस रजिस्टर होता है, फिर उसको प्रूफ करने में हम लोगों को जैसे उसको 1971 का पहले का उसको डॉक्यूमेंट से लिंकेज करना पड़ता है, उसको डॉक्यूमेंट निकालना और उनको मेंटली सपोर्ट करना, कम्युनिटी लेवल पे हमको यूथ के साथ नेटवर्क बनाना, हर कोने में जाके उसको मदद पहुंचाना, यह मेरा और हमारा जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन उसका पहला मकसद है।
We have been offering mental health support to those who have been affected by river erosion, and the sequence goes like this. Once someone is affected by river erosion, they are displaced and they become homeless. Because they become homeless, they lose their documentation, they also tend to lose their citizenship. And many of these people have to prove that they have been living in Assam prior to 1971. Otherwise, they lose their citizenship. And we have been helping these kind of people who are affected by this dual crisis. And particularly, our focus has been on supporting a youth network within this community to support such kind of people.
वहाँ पे जिन लोगों को सिटीजनशिप डिक्लेयर होना हो जाता है, उसको जब पकड़ के लेके हस्बैंड को पकड़ के लेके जाते हैं तो वाइफ घर पे ही रहते हैं बच्चों के साथ, उसमें उनका मेंटल हेल्थ का इशू होता है और उसमें बहुत सारा एनआरसी एक्सरसाइज भी हुआ था, उसमें भी बहुत सारा लोगों ने सुसाइड किया था। हम जैसे ही सुनते हैं किसी को अरेस्ट किया गया है, डिटेन किया गया है, तुरंत उसका घर जाते हैं, उसको उसके साथ रहने का जो है हम लोग आपके साथ है उसको साथ देते हैं और मेंटली उसको स्ट्रांग बनाते हैं उस मुसीबत से निकल के आने में।
In many cases, the wife remains at home and the husband is taken away to the detention camp, which severely affects the mental health of the entire family. And many of them contemplate or actually, kill themselves, unfortunately. So we try to provide support to such affected people who are going through this crisis.
All
Thank
right. Okay, thank you so much, Iftikhar, and also Anshuman for interpreting. I'll go through a quick round of questions and I will open up to the floor. So put your thinking hats on. You've heard a little bit from our panelists already and prepare your questions. I'll go straight to you, Prabhu. Can you provide as a local perspective from Singapore, as someone who is really involved in patient advocacy, and you also mentioned about nature. I think in particular it relates back to nature-based solution. Can you expand and elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure, I'll be more than happy to share. So please take notes because there'll be an exam question on this later. So in my own recovery journey, as I said, 5 years now, right? There are 5 practices that I kind of adopted. I try to live that daily or weekly. And the 5, nothing new. It's being done there. It's just that I got clarity for myself what I should do. And I share that with my other patients and family members and caregivers in the support groups that I'm in. So the first one is about adequate sleep. So I used to sleep at about 2 a.m. Then after cancer, I'll sleep at 2 a.m. And then now I sleep at 9 p.m. So I deliberately make sure that I sleep early to get good sleep. The second is about reduction of stress, So I undertake activities that will reduce my stress, which then leads on to my third item, which is being with nature. So in that concept, I practice a methodology that came out of Japan. Many of you may know forest bathing, Shinrin Yuku. How many of you know of forest bathing, Shinrin Yuku? Okay, about 22.25%. Very good. So, and it's a concept that the Japanese discovered 40 years ago. The Western world, evidence-based, affirmed it 20 years ago. And in Singapore, there are also practitioners who adopt it. The concept is this: you go to a primary vegetated natural place because the plants give out an element called phytoncides. Phytoncides are like our white blood cells. And therefore, when plants get injured or damaged, the phytoncides come to protect the plant, to heal the plant. But in a vegetated, very primary forest type, there is oversupply of phytoncides. So when humans immerse, all you need is 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Immerse there, and it goes through your skin and your breathing and nose, and it helps. So it's also classified as a natural cancer killer in alternative complementary medicine. So it's a good practice. So if you're not into it, or if you're into it, and if you're going to, one of my requests at the end of today will be to, at the end of this session, is to request for you to also be champions for patient advocates, bring patients together in your entire professional work that you're doing. So that's the third one, with being with nature. The fourth one is diet, needless to say, enough of literature there. And the last one is a belief that there's a power greater than us, spirituality. And no matter what religion, I'm Hindu, but no matter what religion, there's somebody up there who looks after, because there have been in my whole recovery and even before moments where I knew somebody was looking at me, looking after me. So those are the 5 that I share and advocate. And hence the part on nature would be my practice of forest bathing.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. I, for one, need to start sleeping early. That's for sure. Guilty of that. Yeah, and I think we can definitely learn from the key takeaways that you have shared. Derek, you are a very experienced human rights defender, and she might look a bit shy, but she's a very vocal climate justice advocate back in her home country in the Philippines. Derek, can you share with us, from a community perspective, from the front lines, what does it look like? How has your experience been, and what needs to be pushed even further?
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. It gives me stress now. Yeah, stress. Yeah. Uh, one, communities have no choice, I guess. That's the reason why, if we do not act on our if we do not defend our rights, no one will, because it is the first duty of the stakeholders to protect and defend their rights. And as I have mentioned earlier, that long before climate change has come, we have been experiencing structural inequities, no inequalities, like social, economic, political, cultural inequities, and climate change has only illuminated these inequalities. And if we do not act on and step up and raise our voices and get together to protect and defend our rights, who will who will do that for us? uh, Given the government and the corporations sometimes are, you know, sometimes the corporate capture is very real, especially in my experience as a community organizer, where our communities are being driven away because of development projects that basically, unfortunately, exacerbate climate change. So we do not have the choice that our only choice is to defend our rights. So, but by raising our voices, unfortunately, some of the bad experiences, I mean, scariest thing that could happen to you as an environmental and climate activist in the Philippines is being red tagged. Worse, being killed because of, as a result of your assertion. I have friends, close friends who have been killed because of our, as a result of our assertion. And you're experiencing discrimination because of what you believe in. Because sometimes we are being tagged as anti-development, and most of the times we are being tagged as a rebel. So it's really hard for in the context of climate change that you have to, you know, we're not really asking for some richness or rich to become rich. We just want to be considered in the development scheme because we're part of the whole society. And I guess this is also a real problem when you're experiencing mental health issues because, for one, these services is not really accessible, especially when you're in the communities. And just like physical health, community people rarely goes to the hospital to have a check on their physical health, more so with mental health. And it's really important for us, like community organizers like me, to um, as what have mentioned by our keynote speaker, to have the collective care because this is the first response that you can do to your community because communities are rarely being considered and listened to. And as community organizer, these are the first thing that we do. And if I could mention, before coming here 5 days ago, my mother died. And my mom doesn't remember anything. She's been diagnosed with dementia for 15 years already. And um, the only thing that she can remember is about the clothes hanging, like sinampay. I don't know the translation equivalent. Sinampay, and you should prepare because there will be flood. Because after the flood that they got stranded at the rooftop of our two-story house for 24 hours without food and without water. The mental and psychological distress that brought my mother and my family with that experience. After the flood, I think the flood is just the it's just an ice cream or an ice cream on top of the iceberg. Um, it's like we have been stripped of our dignity for many years after that flood, and my mom and my dad's health deteriorated. After the flood, my father got leptospirosis, and I think the whole government was overwhelmed with the impact and no health care or no mental, more so mental, because disaster response is just centered on relief and not really on psychological or mental response. And over time, my mom's health deteriorated until we are just being surprised that the only thing that she can remember is about the flood. And up to the time that she died just 5 days ago. And I think these experiences have illuminated our vulnerabilities as an individual and as part of the society. And these vulnerabilities, I think, should be considered in the in the research and in the because these have been the lives of our community for many, many years already. And what good is going to come out if we do not consider these inequalities that really highlights the capacities or the incapacity of our community to be able to survive. This is the most important thing to note, to consider as an organizer, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek, for sharing your story. More power to you, sending strength your way. But what you just mentioned really struck a chord in a capitalistic society and world. Climate change has exacerbated and also unearthed deep-seated inequalities and vulnerabilities that are already existing, but now being brought to light even more. And I think that is something to really take note of and to pay really, really good attention to, because now and I guess that relates next to the next speaker, Priscilla, because you mentioned also in a very different geographical region in the highlands, you talked about your work, but also you do a lot of projects with sort of different stakeholders, including youth and young people, and you do work at the cross intersection of climate change and mental health. Can you share a little bit more, because you experience climate induced disasters and hazards? How does that affect the mental health and the quality of life of the young people in your region? And what kind of projects have you executed to really kind of address those issues?
Yeah, sure. Um, so start off with what I introduced as my experience of the event that happened in 2009. Um, I was never asked the question of how I was feeling. Whenever there is a disaster or a crisis, we don't ask a child how a child is feeling after that disaster. They are always considered to be playing, running around, and we find it is normal, and they do not know the intensity of that event or the intensity of what the devastation was. But I still remember that event, and every child that goes through a certain catastrophe will remember that event. For instance, in Darjeeling, we have 40% of land that is covered by forest, 30% tea plantation, and almost a very small amount of small-scale farmers. With climate change, all of these things are being impacted. Things meaning livelihoods of people. With the livelihood of people being impacted, families' mental health is being impacted, which trickles down to the child's mental health. And again, I come to this question, have we started asking questions about child mental health in interrelation to climate change? So this question has been missing, I guess. As a form of intervention, um, Tea Leaf, which Christina just introduced briefly. So this is a teacher-led mental health program. And we believe through Tea Leaf, we are having a space or an audience or a group of people to talk about mental health. We do have a local dialect to talk about our expressions of climate change and our mental health. Although there might not be a language that aligns with everyone, but we do have an expression of how we are feeling, the losses that we've experienced, and also how it's impacting me, my child, or my family, or my neighborhood. So just to iterate these feelings and these doubts, through Tea Leaf, we are able to express the need of the community. Apart from this, we've also identified that the school system or the school ecosystem is not enough to talk about mental health. We need to further dive into the family system as well as the community system. Tea Leaf has been ongoing since 2018, and we've realized that as we progress and as we learn, the system of care should not be limited to one center or one institute, but it has to revolve to all forms of institutes. The system of care involves, firstly, to start talking about it, to start awareness about it, And secondly, to talk about what exists in the community and how are people kind of coping with it. What's the contextual understanding of it? So these are some of the things we are trying to overcome and also trying to understand. Um, at present, we've identified, or it has been existing since a very long time, a community-centered institute called Samajes. In Nepali, we call it Samajes. So we speak Nepali in Darjeeling, and in this dialect, this group of community called Samaj are the ones who respond to any crisis that happens in the community. It doesn't have to be just a crisis, but there are instances of funerals, there are instances of marriages, or any other congregated crisis situation that happens, a Samaj handles. As I explained in the beginning, being in the mountains, reaching help from the state or the government is very difficult. So the community has formed their own system where the response to certain crises, like the environmental crisis that's happening, is always managed by them in the first hand. For instance, to just give you an example, very recently in 2023, there was a Teesta Valley devastation that happened. Glof, the glacier lake outburst flood that happened in South Loknath Lake in Sikkim, that brought about a damp dispersion of Chungthang Lake, which brought a lot of flood and devastation in Sikkim and districts of Kalimpong, which being interlinked to the regions of Bangladesh as well. So this devastation that was brought about by a certain natural calamity, the Samaj was the first response. The Samaj was the one to bring about care to the community. They were the ones to provide certain resources to the community. Only after 3 days or 4 days, we got resources or help from the state and the national government. So I believe that Tea Leaf is trying to approach that medium of care through schools, through teachers, but the larger concept of reaching towards mental health care in certain categories of climate or social factors has to move towards the community. Yeah.
Thanks, Priscilla, for highlighting community-based initiatives and really centering, because as Derek mentioned, communities, they don't have a choice, right? And Sina, as a first responder, you have to bridge the gap between not just responding, but also preparedness as well. Can you share your experience in really providing that assistance as a first responder, particularly in times of crisis, when disasters happens? What do you do?
Okay. Well, actually, it's good you mentioned preparedness because at first, when we talk about mental health response, we're not really part of the first hour of the disaster, right? The first thing to do is make sure they have food, the basic. However, in my practice for this years, I noticed that mental health first response, this should not lie on the hands of the professionals, of the psychologists, of the psychiatrists, of the mental health advocates. It should actually lie within the members of the family, mother, father, the children. They should also be trained. Because in my recent experience, it's been 3 days and we're not receiving any food, the relief goods. It's not because there's no help. It's because it's flooded. So the trucks could not go into the provinces, to the devastated area. Could not go there. So what should we do? The community itself should know how to help each other, should look after each other. So I made a small experiment in our compound. So our family, we have like six houses within the compound. We were already a victim of the previous typhoons, like nothing left. I can't imagine that wind could really make your house ground zero, like nothing left. So from then on, I actually talked to my auntie, to my uncle, that we have to rebuild a resilient house. At least, don't use any light materials anymore. So we started with from the family. So if the family are equipped with these first, the basic needs, how you should store your food, and then how you would calm each other down in times of crisis, then it goes out to your neighbors, to your community, to the greater population. But that was just me. Okay, so now we're trying to educate more mental health responders that you started within your family, because in this crisis, no one help each other but yourself. So we have to survive. Plus, it's less effort from the government. We don't have to rely so much from the outside help because we can do it ourselves here. We are now experts of surviving. But, I was always telling my friends, and even in conferences like this, that I think we're using resiliency too much, but it doesn't really mean anything. We are very tolerant of the climate change. When it's hot, it's hot. We don't do anything about it. When it floods. Then we don't do anything about it, right? But when we talk about resiliency, you do something about it so that next time you improve how you respond to the to the crisis. There's already weather patterns. We know that by August it would start to rain. And in summer it's really scorching hot. Then why build your house in the same way that you built it 20 years ago, right? So these are the things that, in the Philippines, you just, your breakfast is talking to each other. Instead of talking about gossiping other people, talk about, yeah, talk about how you will improve your life right now, right? How do you build your house from, so what I'm trying to say is we don't need to be reactive of the climate. We have to be proactive with the climate. Again, the lesson that I learned from the recent response that we've had is we trained people PFA a week after the typhoon, which is the ideal is without the typhoon, we should be training for PFA already. So when the typhoon happens, psychologists know what to do, or the mental health advocates know what to do. Okay, so sadly, there were rescuers who were burned out after after responding to the typhoon, and no one asked them, how are you, right? And some of the people that we've visited after the PFA, or during the PFA rather, is their response to stress, their response to eco anxiety is just cleaning the house. You wash this already 10 times, but you didn't realize that you're washing your clothes 10 times because you thought it's still dirty, something like that. The OCD is there. Okay, it's very obvious. And then there's also the exacerbation of mental health disorders that wasn't there when before the disaster happened. So these are very obvious. I think in my mental health first response lens, we cannot do this alone.
Yeah.
We need a lot. We need a multi-sectoral people. Even if you're not a psychologist, you can learn PFA. Yeah, you can say hi, hello, how are you in a structure to someone already. Leave the difficult jobs to the professionals. Okay, so I was telling also my colleagues that when as a psychologist, you don't stop as a psychologist. You build your skills. You will be a business developer sometime, right? We will be a marketing and communication strategist again, or what I'm trying to say is we don't leave our skill set on the counseling room. Okay, let's try to delegate that skills to others, and then we move on to a much bigger role.
Yeah.
So
And thanks, Sina.
Yeah.
I mean, you're calling people out here.
Yeah, sorry.
right? We all definitely need to learn more on that. And there's no time to be complacent. We need to do resilience properly. And on that note, Iftikhar, you talked you talked about working with a diverse and wide range of stakeholders. You even talked about citizenship rights. In your line of work, you work particularly in a very specific region, which is Assam. And can you please provide from like a community perspective on how that governance structure works? How is it like working with a diverse range of stakeholders? And if you can share best practices that work within your community in your advocacy.
थैंक यू। मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ क्योंकि हमारा जो क्लाइमेट चेंज के बावजूद जो रिवर इरोजन हो रहा है, ये जो ब्रह्मपुत्र रिवर और ब्रह्मपुत्र रिवर का सब्सिड्यूट जो रिवर है उसमें हो रहा है। तो उसमें हमारा कम्युनिटी वहाँ पे रहते हैं और वहाँ पे के ब्रह्मपुत्र रिवर 1950 के टाइम पे वो उसका वेस्ट जो था वो 2 किलोमीटर था, अभी हो गया है 16 किलोमीटर रिवर इरोजन हो के, क्योंकि उस टाइम पर अर्थक्वेक हुआ था। अर्थक्वेक के बाद ये बहुत बड़ा रिवर इरोजन होने वाला एरिया लैंड बन गया है।
My community lives along some of the substitute rivers of the main river in Assam, which is the Brahmaputra River. In 1950, the width of the Brahmaputra River was 2 kilometers, and there was an earthquake in 1950. After that, progressively the width increased to 16 kilometers after incremental erosion along the river banks. So people along that range of 16 kilometers have been displaced over the last half a century or more.
वहाँ पे जो लोग थे उन लोगों का फिर वहाँ से क्लाइमेट रिफ्यूजी की तरह उसको वहाँ से दूसरे जगह पे जाना पड़ा, नहीं तो दूसरे सौर एरिया पे जाना पड़ा। तो उसी का एक स्टोरी मैं बताना चाहता हूँ जिसके साथ मैं जुड़ा हुआ हूँ, उसको जिसको मैं मदद किया, उसका नाम नेसा है, उसका बारे में मैं बोलना चाहता हूँ।
So many of these people who got displaced effectively became climate refugees because the nature of erosion also accelerated due to climate change. And many of these people live in some riverine islands within the Brahmaputra and its tributaries. And these riverine islands are called chors in Assamese language. So they were forced to move from one chor, one riverine island, to another chor, to other riverine island. And there is one such story of one person or one individual that I would like to narrate now.
जो नेसा है वो एक सौर एरिया में रहते थे, उसी में फिर उसको रिवर इरोजन की वजह से दूसरा शहर में जाना पड़ा। फिर नया शहर में जाने से उसका अगेंस्ट में सिटीजनशिप केस रजिस्टर कर लिया वहाँ पे, डाउटफुल वोटर लिस्ट में उसको मार्क दिया गया, फिर उसको सिटीजनशिप केसेस रजिस्टर हो गया। फिर वो होने के बाद उसको मालूम ही नहीं पड़ा उसका अगेंस्ट में केस रजिस्टर हुआ है करके। अचानक से उसको एक्सपर्टी जजमेंट दिया गया, फिर अचानक से उसको अरेस्ट किया गया।
This individual that I'm talking about, her name is Mamirun Nessa. So she was one such person who was forced to move from one riverine island to another riverine island because of river erosion. And because she lost her home and address, she was flagged as what is officially known as D voter or doubtful voter by the local administration in Assam. And once that was done, a citizenship case was registered against her, effectively suspecting her of being an illegal immigrant in Assam. She did not even know that this had happened. And because she did not know, in her absence, she was declared an illegal immigrant, which is known as an ex parte judgment. Okay, so she was declared a illegal immigrant in her absence by one of the foreigner tribunals in Assam.
तो उसको जब अचानक से बॉर्डर पुलिस गया, उसको अरेस्ट किया दूसरे सोर्स से अरेस्ट करके उसको लेकर, उस टाइम पे उसका घर में 2 साल का बच्चा था, लड़का था, और वो प्रेग्नेंट भी थी। उसको पकड़ के फिर डिटेंशन कैंप भेजा गया, वो 10 साल डिटेंशन कैंप में रहा।
So after she was declared an illegal immigrant in her absence in the court, in the tribunal, she was arrested by the Assam Border Police. At that time, she was pregnant, something that she could not declare to the police. And she also had a 2-year-old kid. And ultimately, she ended up spending 10 years in a detention camp.
जो जब वो डिटेंशन कैंप में 10 इयर्स थे, उसका जो घर में जो हस्बैंड था, हस्बैंड उसको मुलाकात करने के लिए नहीं गया, इसीलिए को वो जाएगा तो वो जिंदा नहीं रहेगा बीबी को मिलने के लिए। और जो उसका जो बेटा था 2 साल का बेटा जो वो वापस आया उस दिन का मैं बात बोल रहा हूँ आपको। तो मैं बहुत अभी भी ये मुझे रुला देते हैं। तो मम्मी बच्चे को पूछा मेरा जो छोटा बच्चा 2 साल का बच्चा था वो कहाँ पे है। तो मम्मी बच्चे को नहीं पहचान रहे थे और बच्चा मम्मी को नहीं पहचाने ये मेरा मम्मी है, क्योंकि वो 10 साल में 2 साल का बच्चा जो 12 ईयर्स हो गया उसको नहीं मिला और 12 साल का बच्चा जो मम्मी को नहीं मिला वो 10 सालों में। और जो मोमिनन ऐसा प्रेग्नेंट है उसको फिर कुछ इंजेक्शन देने का उसका वो बच्चा वहीं पे वो एवोसन हो गया।
Mamirun Nisa's husband couldn't go to meet her in the detention camp because he was scared of what would happen if he does go. When she finally returned from the detention camp after 10 years, her 2-year-old kid had grown up and to an age of 12. Neither could the mother recognize the kid, nor could the kid recognize the mother. This is a story that still makes me cry whenever I think about it, because this happened almost in front of my eyes. And Mamirun Nessa also claims that because she was pregnant and when she was in the detention camp, the authorities gave her some kind of an injection which essentially induced a forced abortion.
और जो वो आने के बाद क्योंकि उसको थिया जजमेंट में कंडीशन जजमेंट में उसको निकल के लेके आए थे, वो इसके बच्चे को मिल गया। वो फिर बोला मेरा हस्बैंड कहाँ है, क्योंकि वो 10 साल बाद वो हस्बैंड को भी मिलने वाला था। लेकिन वो बहुत नसीब वाला ये है उसका जो हस्बैंड थे 6 महीना पहले आने का 6 महीने पहले उसका डेथ हो गया।
After she returned, she was seeking to meet her husband. She was wanting to meet her husband, but little did she know that just 6 months prior to her release, her husband had passed away.
तो वो तुरंत सेंसलेस हो गया, क्योंकि वो फिर वो आधे घंटे बाद फिर वो सेंस आने के बाद मैं ये एक्साइटेड थे मैं हस्बैंड को मिलूंगा, मेरा बहुत बात बोलने वाला था, लेकिन वो भी नहीं बोल पाया। और हस्बैंड जो जिंदा थे वो भी बोलता था वो आने से आप निकल के लेके आओ और मैं मिलना चाहता हूँ। अचानक से वो कुछ हार्ट का डिजीज थे, वो अचानक से उसका डेथ हो गया और वो मौका नहीं मिला वो हस्बैंड को बोलने का, हस्बैंड को वाइफ को बोलने का, जो उसका फीलिंग्स था वो बोलने का मौका नहीं मिला। नहीं मिला। और ये बात है उसका जो मोमिन नेसा का जो ग्रैंड पेरेंट है 1951 पे भी नेशनल रजिस्ट्रेशन सिटीजनशिप वो हुआ था, रजिस्टर हुआ था। तो उसमें 1951 में उसका नाम है, उसको फॉरेनर डिक्लेयर इसलिए किया गया उसका जो ग्रैंड पेरेंट है उसका नाम पे नाम का स्पेलिंग का इरो था। कोई किसी में कुछ है किसी में कुछ है CH ऐसा वाला कुछ इरो के वजह से उसको फॉरेनर डिक्लेयर किया गया था। लेकिन वो क्लाइमेट रिफ्यूजी का वो क्लाइमेट से ही जुड़ा हुआ है, सौर इफेक्शन से जुड़ा हुआ है वो।
So after she returned, as I already said, she was very excited to meet her husband, and probably before her husband was also quite excited to meet her, but neither of them could meet each other. The husband passed away due to a heart disease, and the reason why Mamirun Nessa's citizenship was stripped was because there was some document some document relating to her grandparents from 1951 in which there was a minor spelling error, because of which the tribunal flagged her as an illegal immigrant and dispatched her to a detention center. But essentially, here is a case where a climate refugee is also facing a double whammy or double crisis of double whammy of a citizenship, victim of a citizenship crisis also.
उसके बाद जो निकल के आया उसके साथ ऐसा होता है मेंटल किसी का, उसका जिस दिन उसका ग्रैंडपेरेंट 102 इयर्स में जिस दिन डेथ हुआ उस दिन उसको जिस वो कंडीशन बेल पे वो निकल के आए थे। हस्बैंड का वो दफनाने के हस्बैंड सॉरी उसका ग्रैंडफादर का दफनाने का 10 बजे दफनाया है, फिर 11 बजे उसको पुलिस स्टेशन जाना पड़ा उसको साइन करने के लिए।
All former detainees are supposed to go to a police station every week to report to the police station to sign a document. The day her grandfather was buried after he died at 102 years of age, at the same day she had to go to the police station to report as a former detainee.
और जो कोविड-19 का टाइम थे उस टाइम पे हम लोग सब लोग घर पे थे, लेकिन उसको उसी जिस दिन उसको वीकली उसको जाना था पुलिस स्टेशन उसको 2 घंटा पैदल पुलिस की उस टाइम पे गाड़ी वगैरह नहीं चलते थे 2 किलोमीटर 2 आवर्स उसको पैदल जाना पड़ते थे, फिर 2 आवर्स उसको पैदल घर पे आना पड़ते थे, क्योंकि उसको जाना जरूरी थे। उसका आप मेंटल हेल्थ कैसा हो सकता है आप एक बार सोचिए। उसका कोई ब्रेड अर्नर तो डेड हो गया, उसको खुद इनकम करना पड़ता है, खुद जाना पड़ता है। उसी को मारीवाला हेल्थ इनिशिएटिव के मदद से उसको लाइवलीहुड ग्रांट दिया गया है, और उसको दाजी का जो सपोर्ट से, और उनको ऑपरेशन भी हुआ था, ट्यूमर ऑपरेशन, उसमें भी हम लोगों ने मदद किया है उनको। और ऐसा स्टोरी असम का हर कोने में है, और उसी में जिसका अगेंस्ट में सिटीजनशिप केसेस होते हैं, मैं उसके बारे में बोलना चाहता हूँ अभी।
During the COVID-19 period, all of us were forced to be at home. But Mamiru Nessa had to go every week, travel 2 hours on, 2 hours off to the police station to report because it was a legal obligation for her to report. So just imagine the effects on her mental health under such layers of crisis. And also because she was forced to become the only breadwinner in her family. There was no other breadwinner in her family after her husband died. But thankfully, due to the support of Mariwala Health Initiative and the Development and Justice Initiative, we could give her some livelihood grants time to time. And also we could provide some support in this whole effort of going on and off from the police station. And you will find such stories of that mirror Mamiru Nessa stories in every corner of Assam.
जो उसी सिटीजनशिप केसेस और जो मेंटल हेल्थ इशू होते हैं रिवाइरेशन के टाइम पे, उन लोगों को मदद करने के लिए बहुत बड़ा पॉपुलेशन है रिवर फ्लड इफेक्टेड। उसको मदद करने के लिए हम लोग जो नेटवर्क है उससे, क्योंकि उसको प्रूफ करने के लिए डॉक्यूमेंट का जरूरत होते हैं, और उसको प्रूफ करने के लिए कोर्ट पे जाना पड़ता है, उसके लिए एडवोकेट को एंगेज करना पड़ता है। तो हम लोगों ने ये किया, जो हम लोगों ने वॉलंटियर का नेटवर्क बना लिया है, और जैसे जैसे जो डॉक्यूमेंट चाहिए, डॉक्यूमेंट से ही वो प्रूव होता है ये इंडियन है या फॉरेनर होगा। तो उसको डॉक्यूमेंट निकलने में हमारा नेटवर्क मदद करते हैं, और उसको सपोर्ट कर। और जो एडवोकेट है, अभी हम लोगों ने डेवलप कर लिया है डिस्ट्रिक्ट लीगल सर्विस अथॉरिटी, जो जुडिशरी बॉडी होते हैं, उनसे फ्री में उनको अभी लीगल एड करने का काम हमने नया करके इसी साल पिछले साल से हमने शुरू किया है 2024 से। यह हमारे लिए बिग अचीवमेंट है। अभी लोगों को गवर्नमेंट के साथ हम लोग जुड़ा पा रहे हैं, और गवर्नमेंट ऑफिस जो डॉक्यूमेंट है हम लोग निकाल पा रहे हैं।
Our network of volunteers provides legal support to such people affected by the citizenship, dual crisis of citizenship and river erosion. We also provide support in gathering their documents and gathering the relevant documents so that they are able to prove their citizenship in front of the tribunals. Um, a big achievement for us has been over the last 1 year that we have been able to connect with the District Legal Service Authority, which is the official legal aid service authority of in Assam, to provide free legal aid to such citizenship affected people. So we are fortunate that they have been the local administration, part of the local administration, such as the DLSA, has been very supportive of our work in providing this kind of legal aid, free legal aid to these marginalized people.
और मैं ये भी मेरा जो ये कहना का है, क्योंकि हमारा वहाँ पे अभी तो जो इशू मुद्दा चल रहा है, जो क्लाइमेट का जो इतना बड़ा इरोजन है, कोई इसके लिए कोई डाटा नहीं है, परफेक्ट डाटा नहीं। मैं यही से मैं रिक्वेस्ट करना चाहता हूँ, आप लोग वहाँ पे जाके जो क्लाइमेट और जो एवेक्शन होने के बाद, इरोजन होने के बाद वो दूसरे जगह तो गवर्नमेंट उसको एवेक्शन करते, उसका भी इतना परफेक्ट डाटा नहीं है। तो आप लोग वहाँ पे मतलब उसको रिसर्च करके एक परफेक्ट डाटा बनाने में मदद कीजिए। उसमें मेरा जो कम्युनिटी है, कम्युनिटी को कुछ जस्टिस मिलने से मदद होगा।
Finally, I want to say that there is an acute lack of data on climate refugees and forced evictions and river erosion in Assam, the exact extent of river erosion and how it affects the forcibly displaced people. So I would request you all to support our initiative to collect better data. And that it is precisely by doing that I believe my community will get some justice.
Wow, what a story. I'm checking in on how everyone is feeling because that really touched me. And I don't know how you do it. And I'm just checking on time with the organizer. I know lunch is waiting for us outside. I've been flagged. Questions? Later. Okay. So I did not want to cut short the rich stories of this amazing panel, and you've heard from the communities themselves on how they have connected back with nature, how being the front line of environmental defender has been like, how they have really organized and mobilized community-based movements to tackle the climate crisis at the intersection of mental health as well. How preparedness is really important in providing mental health and psychosocial support when it comes to disasters, and also legal aid when it comes to really assisting the climate refugees who are really undocumented and the data is really scarce. So with this, I would like to invite everyone to give a huge, huge round of applause to our amazing community. Please feel free to approach them. We'll all be having lunch outside. And yeah, have more conversations, have more meaningful chats, and we look forward to getting in touch with you during lunch. Thank you so much, everyone.
And
Over.
thank you, Jasmine. And in fact, I would like to ask you to give these brave leaders a standing ovation. I think they do deserve a standing ovation. Thank you so much. So for those who have questions, we'll try to find time later in the next panel, or even during the closing, we'll have time to really bring all of these together. But for now, we want to nourish you with more food outside. Let's spend maybe around 50 minutes for lunch. Let's be back here on time for more conversations.